Hi guys, so I thought today I would share with you my Penguin Modern Classics collection. So a couple of years ago I did some videos like this where I showed you collections of books in certain editions that I had whilst I was off camera. But I thought it might be fun to do an updated version, face to camera, chatting a little bit more about the books. I have also acquired some new Penguin Modern Classics since then, as well as gotten rid of a few that I read and didn't enjoy. I haven't read all of the books in this selection, but I will talk to you about the ones that I have read and share my thoughts, as well as just obviously give you a little bit of a sneak peek into my book library collection, but without further ado, let's get into the books, shall we? So no particular order, the first book I have on the top of my pile is The Enchanter by Vladimir Nabokov. This is actually slightly different from a lot of the Penguin Modern Classics in that it's a special range of modern classics that Nabokov's books all came out in. I just think these are the most beautiful editions of his work, although I haven't picked up any of his other ones. I have read this. This is sort of a precursor to Lolita in that it's on the same topic. It essentially follows a paedophile in the way that Lolita does, but it's a lot shorter and was originally written in Russian, so I guess it was kind of a practice work before Lolita. I completely appreciate why everyone thinks his writing is so beautiful. I think he's an excellent writer, even in this book, which is translated into English. I really enjoyed the writing, but I did find the topic very disturbing, and I feel like enough. I don't feel like I need to now read Lolita, but I would like to read perhaps another book by Vladimir Nabokov. The one that I've had my eye on is Pale Fire, so let me know if you think that would be a good place to go next. So this next one I haven't read, but it's a book that I have just seen everywhere and feel like I should read, and that's Perfume by Patrick Suskind. I think this one is also translated from German in this case. And this one follows a man who's obsessed with smell and finding the perfect scent or distilling the perfect scent. And to do this, I believe he starts to kidnap or kill young women who he thinks potentially will give him this perfect scent to experiment on them. So it's a bit of a serial killer story. Another one that follows a really disturbing character. And after I've really enjoyed books like The Collector and The Dumb House, I thought perhaps this would be in a similar vein, and I have heard really excellent things about the writing in this one as well. I heard that the way it describes smell is just out of this world, so for that reason alone I'm really intrigued by it. I then have The Fairy Tales of Charles Perrault by Angela Carter. Although I wouldn't say necessarily by Angela Carter, this is essentially just a selection of Charles Perrault's fairy tales, originally written in French. So those include fairy tales like Cinderella, in which Angela Carter has collected together a few of her favourites and added little comments to them. But they're not retellings, which you might expect, especially given Angela Carter's other books like The Bloody Chamber and Other Stories, which are retellings of classic fairy tales. These are not retellings in that sense. These are pretty much the originals with some little added comments by Angela Carter. Okay, so the next one I haven't read either, but it's by an author who I have read works by and loved, and that is The Complete Cosmicomics by Italo Calvino. I read Italo Calvino's Italian folktales and adored it. It narrowly missed out being in my top 10 favourite books of all time. It was like number 11 when I did that video, but I still think it's an absolutely phenomenal book, and I remember picking this up because I want to read some more Italo Calvino. I still haven't got into it yet, but I do need to. I believe these are all fictionalised stories by Italo Calvino from sort of the beginning of the universe, through different alien races and solar systems and that kind of thing, almost like fairy tales of space and evolution, I feel. I haven't read them, so that's just my impression from what it is, but Italo Calvino's writing is fantastic, and I'm sure I'm going to love this one. I've heard really great things. I then have a non-fiction modern classic. This is Reading Lolita in Tehran by Azar Nafisi, which I haven't read, but this is written by Azar Nafisi, who started a book club in Tehran, in Iran, to read works of Western literature that were forbidden, particularly for women to read, I believe. And it's Nafisi exploring their experience reading books like Lolita and The Great Gatsby, whilst intertwining their own stories within that and exploring themselves through exploring this literature. I then have two books which I have read and are by the same author, and they're both by Ludmila Petrovskaya, and these are both collections of modern Russian fairy tales written by the author, translated into English. I want to start with this one actually because it's the one I preferred. I loved this collection. It is There Once Lived a Woman Who Tried to Kill Her Neighbour's Baby, Scary Fairy Tales. These were fantastic. These were so good. I feel like they are perfect for fans of Roald Dahl's adult short stories. They have that perfect creepy adult short story feel to them, but the language isn't particularly flowery. They really remind me of Roald Dahl in that sense, and I loved this collection. I didn't love the second collection quite as much. This is There Once Lived a Girl Who Seduced Her Sister's Husband and He Hanged Himself, love stories. These ones felt like a little bit too repetitive for me, and whereas there was little elements of magical realism in these short stories, there weren't in these ones, and I just think that made the collection overall just less exciting and a little bit samey as I was reading it. But I still really enjoyed her writing, and I know she has another collection in this series, which I don't know what it's called, but there is a collection in this series other than these two that I do want to pick up, but I would highly recommend the Scary Fairy Tales to everybody. I then have another book by Italo Calvino, and that is Why Read the Classics. This is a collection of essays by Italo Calvino. I've read a couple of the essays in this, but I haven't read the full collection, and it goes through different periods of classic literature and explores specific classic works and the value they bring to the reader and society. One of my favourite literary quotes is by Italo Calvino, and it is, "A classic is a book that has never finished saying what it has to say," which I think is lovely. He doesn't explore them as highbrow tomes of literature that everybody must feel pressured to read, but wonderful pieces of literature that one should enjoy reading, but doesn't have to. So it starts off in ancient Greece with books like the Odyssey and goes all the way to works by authors like Ernest Hemingway through the ages. Really lovely collection, although like I said, I haven't read them all. I then have two books by an author who I have read one book by, but isn't in a Penguin Modern Classic, and that is John Steinbeck. I read John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men and loved it. It is a modern American classic and it's absolutely wonderful, worth all the hype. Would recommend to everybody. And I have two more of his books here. I have Canary Row, which is all about John Steinbeck's native California, set in a small location there, following a random group of mishmashed people that live there and their lives and what this place is like through that. And then I also have The Winter of Our Discontent by John Steinbeck, and since I don't really know what this is about, I'm just going to read the back. It says, "Ethan Allen Hawley has lost the acquisitive spirit of his wealthy and enterprising forebears, a long line of proud New England sea captains and pilgrims. Scarred by failure, Ethan works as a grocery clerk in a store his family once owned, but his wife is restless and his teenage children troubled and hungry for the material comforts he cannot provide. Then a series of unusual events reignites Ethan's ambition and he is pitched onto a bold course where all scruples are put aside." If you read either of these and think I would prefer one to the other, or have any thoughts on them, then do let me know. I then have a book by Muriel Spark, which is The Driver's Seat. I have read Muriel Spark's The Prime of Miss June Brodie, which I actually was in secondary school for my drama class. I was Sandy. And this is another book by Muriel Spark. I haven't gotten around to this one yet, but it's very short, like The Prime of Miss June Brodie, and this one follows a woman who decides to up and basically leave her job and her life suddenly one day, and gets in the driver's seat and off she goes. And then another non-fiction book is the autobiography of Malcolm X. This one is pretty clear from the title what it's about. Malcolm X was a member of the Black Panthers and a kind of massive figurehead during the time of the civil rights movement, and he spent some time in prison. I believe that's where he actually wrote this autobiography. That could be completely wrong, but it's all about his life, and I think he's a very interesting figure of a very important time in history, and I would like to get around to this one soon. I then have a huge pile of books by the same author, and they're all by Shirley Jackson. I have 6 books here, and I've read 2 from this pile and 1 other that's not in a Penguin Modern Classics edition. I also read Shirley Jackson's We Have Always Lived in the Castle, which is actually my favourite book by her, and then I've also read The Haunting of Hill House, which was the first book I read by her and also really enjoyed. This one follows a group of a few people who are brought together by a scientist of the paranormal activity to spend some time in a house that's supposedly haunted all of these people having had prior experiences with the supernatural in the hopes that they will kind of bring to life whatever is going on in this house, and this scientist can study it, and we follow one woman in particular and kind of how living in this house affects her, and it's a creepy literary classic really, like a lot of Shirley Jackson's books are. I've also read most of the stories in The Lottery and Other Stories, which honestly I don't love as much. I do not like Shirley Jackson's stories as much as her novels, from the 2 novels I've read, although it seems lots of people love her stories. So I liked some of the stories in this. I think The Lottery, the lead story, is pretty amazing. It's her most famous story. I don't know, they just didn't do it for me, which is strange because again I feel like they probably appeal to similar people that the Ludmilla Petrovskaya ones would, as well as Roald Dahl would, but just never fell in love with them, unfortunately. I do have 4 more of her novels to eventually get around to. You know when you read a couple of books by an author and love them and then end up acquiring tons of their books at once? One of these was actually a gift from Alicia over at Ex Libris, and I'm really sorry Alicia, I can't remember which one of these it was, which is really, really bad. I think it was The Bird's Nest. This one says, Elizabeth Richmond is almost too quiet to be believed, with no friends, no parents, and a job that leaves her strangely unnoticed. But soon she starts to behave in ways she can neither control nor understand, to the increasing horror of her doctor and the humiliation of her self-centred aunt. So that one sounds really good. The next one I have is The Sundial, which a family friend Linda read and thought was just brilliant. This one follows a family who believe the apocalypse is impending, and it's about them preparing their home for the apocalypse and all of the kind of mad characters that live in this house together. I then have The Road Through the Wall, which reads, in Pepper Street, an attractive suburban neighbourhood filled with bullies and egotistical bigots, the feelings of the inhabitants are shallow and selfish. What can a neighbour do to triumph over another neighbour? What may be won from a friend? And then I have Hangs a Man, which I believe is actually based on the true story of a missing college student. It says, Natalie Waite, daughter of mediocre writer and neurotic housewife, is an increasingly unsure of her place in the world. In the midst of adolescence, she senses a creeping darkness in her life which will spread among nightmarish parties, poisonous college cliques, and the manipulations of the intellectual men who surround her as her identity gradually crumbles. So I do need to get around to reading more of my Shirley Jackson collection. If you have any thoughts on which of those 4 I should go for next, then please do let me know, because I did love her other books, not the short stories, but the other 2 novels I read by her, and I'm sure I would love these as well. I then have 2 that were given to me by my mum. My mum's not a big keeper of books. They may also have been at one point Linda's, I can't remember, but you know, they've sort of been passed around and then ended up on my shelves, but I haven't read either and don't really know what either are about, but you know, they're kind of modern classics that they enjoyed, so I might enjoy when I get to them. One is Hangover Square by Patrick Hamilton. This one says, London, 1939, and in the grimy publands of Earl's Court, George Harvey Bowen is pursuing a helpless infatuation. Netta is cool, contemptuous, and hopelessly desirable to George. George is adrift in a drunken hell except in his dead moments, when something goes click in his head and he realises without doubt that he must kill her. So this one definitely sounds like my kind of book, so hopefully when I get to it. And then we have Johnny Got His Gun by Dalton Trumbo, and this one reads, swimming in and out of consciousness, American soldier Joe Bonham comes to realise that he's been wounded in a mortar attack. As he pushes through memories and perplexing dreams, he becomes aware of the full extent of his horrifying injuries. Written in the 1930s about the horrors of the First World War, Johnny Got His Gun was the most influential protest novel of the Vietnam War and remains compelling and unforgettable, an unflinching account of the human cost of conflict. Again, sounds fantastic. We then have a book which is actually in the old Penguin Modern Classics edition, so way back when at one point they looked like this, they were silver. And this is The Man in the High Castle by Philip K. Dick, which I didn't finish. I read about 3/4 of it and then just never read the end. It's a really interesting book when you're reading it, but the plot's not particularly compelling. In fact, it's a little bit plotless and it really jumps about randomly, and that's because of the technique that Philip K. Dick used to write it. But really interesting, and part of me wonders if one day we'll go back and read the end. But for now, I have to admit I didn't finish it, and it's an alternative history set in America if Germany and Japan had won World War II. I then have my most recent acquisition, which is the new Penguin Modern Classics. Yes, I said it, new. They now have blue spines. I don't think these look bad, I think the design's actually quite nice, but I kind of hate that now when I buy new editions of Penguin Modern Classics they're not going to match my other ones. That really grates me. I feel like that was a really unnecessary change to make. But this is In Cold Blood by Truman Capote, which is the story of a true crime in which a farmer and his family were all murdered. And last but certainly not least for this video is a science fiction novel by Stanislav Lem called The Siberia. This one just sounds mad. It says, in the strange surreal world of the Siberia, outlandish events abound. Two ingenious constructors travel through a medieval universe offering their technical expertise. A machine capable of creating anything that starts with the letter N meets an untimely end. Kings oppress their people with parlour games and PhD pirates demand ransom and knowledge rather than gold. This one is actually my dad's, who really likes this science fiction author, so I'm definitely up for giving them a shot. It sounds really wacky and fun. But those are all of my Penguin Modern Classics. I hope you have enjoyed this video. I'd love to hear your thoughts on any of these books, the ones I've read and haven't read, especially if I haven't read it, whether you think I should get to it soon, or, you know, did you really dislike it? I also love to hear that too. And also let me know if you'd like to see more of these collection type videos. But until next time guys, happy reading, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye!